Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Janet Yong, and in my channel, I share about feng shui, Bazi, entrepreneurship, as well as personal growth, especially in the areas of communication success and motivation. In today's episode, I'll be starting a series on personal growth. And on personal growth, what's the best topic to start on? You actually be on motivation, and I'll be having a conversation with a Generation Z, Mr. Wilson Ang, and explore or understand how he managed to basically rank from the bottom of his school when he was 14 to the top 10 of his secondary school and junior college. And for his interview, I'll be splitting it into two parts. The first part, I'll interview him on how he managed to motivate himself to overcome odds such that he basically outperformed from the bottom of his school and ranked at the top such that he landed up in university. And 2 weeks later, I'll share the second part of his video where he'll share some of his experiences on how he pivoted from internship experiences of consultancy and product management to being in tech sales and how he even landed a job before he graduated. So without further ado, let's move on to the next segment where we'll be interviewing and having Wilson share his views and experience. Hi,
Well,
Wilson. Thank you for agreeing for this particular interview.
thanks for having me here as well.
Great. I do have audiences who do have either children or they are in their 20s or 30s who are usually about motivating, if it's a parent motivating their child, if it's themselves, how do they motivate themselves to do better? So what I'd like to learn from you is your journey from 14, because that would be my first question, because I knew you from young and at that time you weren't really doing that well. So I wanted to know what motivated you to do well when you were ranking at the bottom of your school when you were 14?
That's a good question. And you know what? That question makes me feel a bit old. But I came a long way. So I love to share my experiences. If I backtrack a bit, I was in a situation where, I was young. I was quite foolish as well. I lacked direction. So, I was just floating around, and naturally without a goal, there was no motivation. I like this car analogy. To get to somewhere, to create output, right? You need a destination, right? Then you need to accelerate from 0 to 1, and you need to navigate to your destination, right? And how I did it, right? The first one was destination, setting of goals. So I think you may recall, we were actually back in KL on a holiday with Kevin and Uncle Wei Jian, and we set some goals. And I think the act of setting goals, actually penning it down, was something that makes a difference, right? Setting that SMART goals and actually just penning it down. So it's no longer just words floating around. It's actually very concrete goals. I think that's one. And the second part about acceleration, right? From there was a bit of nudge. And that's where small little successes, like, just common tests, from failing to actually passing it and actually scoring well at it. This gives me the affirmation that I needed. Back when I had no goals, that small little affirmation was necessary to propel me even more, right? So I think that's where the acceleration happens. And, fast forward, a couple of months or even years ahead, right? Navigating to my goals, there will be wrong turns, right? A bit of small mistakes here and there. But, once you get the momentum up, I think from there, you just navigate through, learn from your mistakes, and naturally everything becomes a lot clearer. And even if it's not clear, navigate through it. And yeah, I think that is a very generic kind of flow, right? But it works very well for me.
I see. But I think what happens is from 14, right, you do pretty well. Like you mentioned, we are navigating. At times, you may not necessarily hit that goal, although you may be achieving small milestones and successes. What do you do to continuously motivate yourself?
So continuously. So I'll say one of it will be, you set your goals. Most likely your first set of goals will be the immediate future, right? But you don't stop there. You continue setting, you have your, they call it like your 1-year plan, your 5-year plan, and your 10-year plan, and so on. So you continue setting. It's a work in progress, right? You never actually, achieve perfection. It's a continuous improvement. You constantly refine. And along the way, you'll learn that, actually I want a bit more. I want to try this out. I want to try that out. I can push myself a bit more. And I think all of this constant urge or motivation to improve was what made me like be consistent, right? I think that's the key thing: consistently improving and always striving to achieve something more than I previously did.
But you're talking about this from an adult perspective.
That's
I
true.
guess when you are looking back, let's say, for example, when you were 14, then you got your first score that you did very well. I'm sure you're pretty happy. But when you're like in your teenage years, there are many parents that I deal with who talk about they are rebellious, they want to have fun, and what is this all about? What are all these goals about? So if you were to be a parent, for example, right now, and you want to motivate your kid who's actually really not doing well at their 15, 16 years old, or they have totally no direction at all, because at that point in time, you'll not be thinking about earning money, right? How would you basically advise a parent to better communicate or motivate their children coming from your perspective, right? Because for me, I'm already a parent. So coming from your perspective, how would you actually suggest a parent motivate their child?
That's a good question. But maybe before I answer that, I just caveat that all child is very different, right? In terms of what motivates them. But for me, right, I think I know what motivates me. It's not, there's a carrot and there's a stick, right? For me, it wasn't really the stick, right? It was always the carrot. The carrot, I see as empowerment, right? Giving your kid the resources to actually succeed, to set them up for success. I think that is something that will be important, right? So I would say what worked well for me won't be to scold them for not achieving the results that the parents want. Rather ask them what the kid want and giving them the resources available to actually attain it, right? So asking your kids maybe perhaps open-ended questions like, what subject, or maybe not a subject, what interests you right now, right? I think that would be a good way to actually get the conversation started, understand their interests, and from there empower them to actually reach those goals, right? I think when it comes from internal, right, it's a lot more intrinsic, and I think that will make a lot of difference. And the kid will probably see it as empowerment and motivation rather than something to be feared, right? And I think that will make a lot of difference, especially to a child or even a teenager, right? So I hope that kind of answers your question from the perspective of a 14-year-old boy back then.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good way, from one perspective of a child that is motivated and giving their resources. There are some parents that I speak to, which is quite interesting. They say, when I ask them, they say, I don't know. And then you give them the resources, they want toys. Then as a parent, you are really worried that, I already feel guilty because I don't spend enough time with my child because I've been working so hard. Right. So I will send them for tuition and all those other things to make sure that they do well, thinking that these are the resources that they require. If it is from the perspective of a child that is directionless, not so self-motivated, maybe it's not yourself, but let's say you have friends who are in this particular category, how would you then advise a parent to handle this situation?
That's a very good point. I'm a tutor as well, so I teach very young kids as well. So a lot of times they'll tell me that they only have one thing in mind, play. And when I hear that, that actually resonated quite a lot because I was like them, right? It's a difficult conversation to have, but I would say dig deeper and also observe, right? Sometimes there are things that make them happy. For example, if they come home with a spelling quiz that they tell you that they're very happy that they scored well, that can be something that they didn't know will bring them joy. But it's something that maybe you can observe as a parent, right? So these kind of small little things could be an indication of what a child's interest is, but he may not be able to articulate it that well yet. But that's something that a parent could observe, right? And I think for me, I would say things like math Olympiad. It was very young ago, but it's something that I actually enjoy, right? So I will often show my parents there's a small little dice, a Dungeon and Dragon dice that the teacher often give. And this kind of things makes me quite excited about lessons. So, I mean, looking back, there will be some key indication that I actually do have a passion in math, although it's not something that I articulated quite well because I was young. But yeah, so I think my advice would be perhaps parents could be more conscious about their kids' involvement in school, right? What do the kids often talk about happily, right? I think this will be a good indicator of what the kids is interested in.
Thank you. That's very, very insightful, Wilson. So let's fast forward. I think right now you just graduated. You have already secured the job even before you actually graduate. I think people, even my clients' children, they are not really sure, number one, the courses that they should be taking. Two is also when they get into tertiary education, they have some challenges. So what were your key challenges when you were in university, and how do you overcome them?
It's something that is quite recent, so definitely something that I still remember very fondly. I would say when you're at the university, that age range, right? You have the autonomy, you have the freedom. You're probably in a situation where you can juggle, or you choose the best mix of be it academics, internship, part-time work, CCA, social, personal. There are a lot of things that you can do, right? And I think that's the challenge. Given autonomy, what do you prioritize? I think that's the toughest thing to answer, right? Getting that sweet balance is definitely difficult. And the perfect ratio will likely depend on the individual, right? And I think the best way to overcome this is to understand what you want to take away from uni or that 4 years, right? There will be a lot of comparison. I think in Singapore or in uni, this will happen. And I realized that a lot of people actually get very caught up in it and very unhappy, right? But I think for me, I'm not a huge fan of those comparisons. My path is quite different. So I did a lot of internships, far more than what is necessary, mainly because I do enjoy it, right? I enjoy working with very brilliant people on very real and tangible projects. So that was the thing that I wanted to take away from uni. And no regrets, I enjoy it a lot. I made a lot of friends there as well, a lot of which I still keep in touch with, right? So I would say, yeah, basically a lot of freedom. And that's where you need to prioritize and, go for things that matters most to you. Not like what society matters or what follow your friends and things like that, right? Know what matters to you, and go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.